officers that the mysterious light had been spotted a second time.
The police claimed that it was back. They kept telling me it was back.
When you heard this report from these men, what did you make of it? What was your frame of mind?
I thought there was a rational explanation for this. I guess I was a non-believer is the best way to put it.
What happened when you came out to investigate?
Somebody had to go out and respond and put this to rest. And it was my intention to go out there and just put it all to rest and put it all behind us and get it over with. And that's really what I intended to do and what I expected to do. In fact, you know, when I got out there, I thought, why did I ever get involved in this? I wish I had done this. I wish I'd let somebody else do this, because nobody will believe this. So I gathered up a small team, 5 people, and we went out into the forest.
You just saw a light where? There it is again. Yeah, it's a strange red light. Here he comes from the south. He's coming toward us now.
Colonel Charles Halt, an American serviceman stationed in Britain in 1980, recounts the night he chased down what he believes was a UFO.
Did you do anything to document the sighting on the night?
Yes, I actually have my little in-ear portable tape recorder with me, so I turned it off and on as something was occurring. I documented everything on the tape.
It's a strange red light. There's something very, very strange. And it just moved to the right. Yeah. Off to the right. Strange.
Halt claims that he led a team of soldiers from the east gate of RAF Bentwaters. They then spotted the bright object in Rendlesham Forest and reportedly chased after it, heading east. When they reached a farmhouse in a clearing, the object launched into the skies.
We were moving in this direction, as was the object I saw moving through the trees.
Okay, we're looking at the thing. We're probably about 200 to 300 yards away. It looks like an eye winking at you. It's still moving from side to side. It sort of has a hollow center, right? You know, like a pupil of an eye looking at you and winking. And the flash is so bright it almost burns your eye.
Halt reports that the light moved past a creek into a nearby field.
We just crossed the creek. We see strange strobe-like flashes to the rather sporadic, but there's definitely something, some kind of phenomenon.
We come out of the forest up here about another 100 yards, chasing the object. And the object came out in the middle of this field.
The field contained a farmhouse, cattle, and, at that time, a bright moving object.
We're hearing very strange sounds out of the farmers' barnyard animals. They're very, very active, making an awful lot of noise. Here he comes from the south. He's coming toward us now.
And we're looking out this way, obviously.
Okay.
There's the farmer's house.
Yeah.
The object was out here in the field, over here.
Right.
The lighthouse is over there, about 30 degrees.
Now we're observing what appears to be a beam coming down to the ground. This is unreal.
So once you got out here to the field, the object was gone?
The object silently exploded into 5 white objects, and they just disappear.
Is there any way this could have been some sort of flare?
Flare doesn't move through the forest, avoiding trees, and bob up and down a little bit. It came toward us at some point, it went away from us at some point, and when we approached it, it moved out here into the field.
Now, what exactly were you seeing?
An object that was oval-shaped, bright reddish orange, almost like the sun at midday. It had a black oval center. It would like wink a little bit, and it was dripping something like molten metal.
There was molten metal?
Well, I say that's the only way I can equate it. It was something was dripping that appeared off it.
So helicopter explanation is out?
No, it wasn't a helicopter.
Colonel Halt is one of the most credible eyewitnesses that I've ever had the chance to talk to. This man ran an entire military base with a lot of top secret weapons that he couldn't tell me about. And I don't think he made a mistake that night. I think something happened that people weren't meant to know about.
These 2 bases, adjacent to the forest, were among the most secure in the world. Impenetrable fences encircled the bases, razor wire, motion detectors, embedded sensors, and more than 25 heavily armed patrolmen guard the facilities.
This was a facility with some of the tightest security in the world. And this thing comes out of the sky, it lands there not once, but twice in a 24-hour period without triggering any sort of alarm. The only way that this thing was seen was by the human eye when these guards came out to see it. And what's odd is that this thing was brilliantly lit. It shone beams down to the ground. It's almost as if it didn't even care if it was seen or not. It's almost as though it could care less about how we would defend ourselves against it. There's nothing we had that this thing was scared of. And for me, that's the scariest thing of all.
RAF Bentwaters most likely housed nuclear weapons as tensions grew in the 1980s.
You have to remember what the world was like in 1980. Some historians call it the start of the Second Cold War, a Cold War threatening to become a hot war, with two sides staring at each other across the Iron Curtain. And Ronald Reagan had just been elected president and was making all kinds of threats against the evil empire of the Soviet Union. It was a very scary time, with both sides making all kinds of military threats. I'm not saying the aliens were actually listening to us, but if they were, they might have thought we were just days away from pushing the button. And here, a UFO came over a nuclear weapons base, was beaming shots of light down on nuclear weapons. I guess maybe scanning the weapons. It interfered with the base operations, interfered with the radios. They scrambled the security team. The UFO actually lured the security team off the base. So the Americans freak out. They shut it down. They do nothing. They don't want to talk about it.
The United States hasn't investigated UFOs since Project Blue Book ended in January 1970. But to this day, Britain's Ministry of Defense does, as unidentified objects might pose a threat to British security. Strangely, Colonel Halt, an American, was not interviewed or debriefed by British authorities.
There was nothing like this had ever happened before. All previous UFO sightings were just lights in the sky, really. The Americans kind of hope that the British will deal with it, and the British hope that it's an American problem, and that if anyone says nothing, hopefully the whole situation will go away.
British and American authorities simply advised Halt to send a memo to the UK's Ministry of Defense about the events in the forest. But 2 days prior to Colonel Halt's submission of his memo, another inexplicable event occurred. An event that left local resident and forester Vincent Thurkettle puzzled and disturbed.
I lived in a cottage just over there. I was out chopping wood.
Thurkettle lived and worked in Rendlesham Forest at the time of the sighting.
Between Christmas and New Year, a car pulled up. Two young Englishmen got out, say 25 years old, in suits, came and talked to me. And what they were asking was, they said, "We've heard of red lights being seen in the forest."
Who were these mysterious men? And how did they know of the UFO event before Colonel Halt released the information?
It sounds to me like Vincent was actually visited.
The team uncovers some alarming answers. A few days after the UFO incident, two strange men interrogated the residents of Rendlesham Forest in Britain. No one knows who they were or what they wanted.
A car pulled up. Two young Englishmen got out, say 25 years old, in suits, came and talked to me. And what they were asking was, they said, "We've heard of red lights being seen in the forest. And were you out last night?" I said, "No." They said, "Did you see anything? Do you know anyone?" And I said, "No." And then they just closed the conversation down and went.
What's really exciting is this new information about Vincent Thurkettle being visited by some kind of men in black. He did mention that two Englishmen in black suits in a black car visited him. It almost sounds like a cliche, but it sounds to me like Vincent was actually visited by the men in black.
UFO researchers recognize Thurkettle's encounter as a classic Men in Black scenario. Frequently, after a UFO sighting, witnesses are reportedly visited by two men who question them about what they saw.
Two young British guys interviewed me, and I later found out they interviewed everyone in the area to check if we were out that night and if we'd seen anything.
Who do you think they were? Were they journalists? Were they
if they were journalists, they never published. And what's fascinating about that is Colonel Hart hadn't even written his letter. The letter that blew everything up and supposedly informed the British about it, he hadn't written that letter.
This case has been investigated for decades, right? And this is the first time I've heard anything about this Men in Black. This is a huge piece of the puzzle we're talking about here, so I need to go talk to Colonel Halt about this. I have a feeling he might be able to tell us a little bit more about it. Vincent told me that he was visited by two young men in black suits who questioned him about the incident. But the thing is, how would they know about it, as your memo hadn't been released yet?
I don't know who they were. It was done discreetly, I know that. I do know that the airmen involved were questioned under very mysterious circumstances by people that they didn't recognize, and some of them were British.
It's a really big deal.
As a Department of Forestry employee, Vincent Thurkettle is an expert on the Rendlesham Forest area and feels that Halt's sighting of a UFO was no sighting at all.
This guy knows that forest, and he's trying to tell me that he really didn't find anything unusual in the area where the UFO supposedly landed. His argument is convincing that maybe it was the lighthouse.
6 miles away from the report